Welcome everybody to our special board meeting. The purpose of this meeting this evening is to talk about the grade structure report that was posted to our website last Friday. And it is the report that will form the basis for our public consultation this fall. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and the adoption of the agenda. A motion for that? Second? Second. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. So this evening we'll just do a combination with presenting this report. I'll make some opening remarks and then it'll be over to Jordan to describe the report in full. So the purpose of this report. Over the past year, the board has heard some various different concerns expressed by the public, mostly following the reconfiguration of the schools last fall. Issues with respect to crowded schools, long-term use of portables, school size, both schools that might be too long or too large in the long run or too small, and the loss of electives for some students now, and a concern about loss of elective offerings in the future if secondary schools become too small. They've talked to us about establishing developmentally appropriate supports for all of our students, regardless of which building they happen to be attending school in. And of course, there's the usual concerns every year with class size and composition for any school in our district, and probably most especially for students with special needs is a key thing. So added to those concerns, we also have the news that the government will be starting to implement all-day kindergarten in our schools in September 2010. They actually floated that idea out there last year in February 2008 in their throne speech, and when it became clear that this would present significant space issues and cost pressures to school districts, they put the brakes on it and put it on hold. But they have recently announced again that they plan to go ahead with this, and this time they've attached some dollars to it. I believe the announcement was that there would be $44 million available in September 2010 to support this initiative, and $107 million in the following year, September 2011, to support this initiative. So while we certainly don't have details by any stretch of the imagination, they have announced some money attached to this, so they must be fairly serious about implementing this. So that is also a piece that we've brought into our report. This is not something that was known by the Committee on Grade Structure, and they explicitly said in their report that the report did not contemplate the introduction of all-day kindergarten, but we felt that this should be contemplated in this report, and so we've added that in. So the report does contain options that address the concerns of the public. They address the concerns of the public in a variety of different ways, hence 3 options. And what we are doing is we're seeking the public's input on these options, all of which are capable of supporting a vibrant public education system in the Comox Valley. And the origins of the report, of course, come from the Committee on Grade Structure report, which was given to us on June the 17th. So upon receiving that report, we did narrow the options to 3, and the board had a desire to ensure that that information was presented to the public in a very comprehensive and easy to understand format. And we believe that this report meets that objective and that the public will see what the highlights and lowlights are of the different options. And next I'll hand it over to Jordan, who will maybe talk a little bit about the process that we've undergone and what the actual options are. Thanks.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So as Susan said, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the process to get to where we are and the format of the report. Can people hear me in the back? Thank you. So on February 24th of this year, the board had asked me to write a paper on grade structure options for the district and to outline really 3 models. That was status quo, K to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, and K to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, with considering 2 or 3 secondary schools. So we wrote that report in January and February, presented to the board on February 24th, and that was really a way to spark the first round of public consultation on options. And in April, as a result of getting the public feedback, the board decided to strike a committee on grade structure, which is a pretty broad-based committee. I think about 20 people in all on the committee. And the purpose of the committee on grade structure was to explore viable options, again with the status quo, 3 high schools and a 6 to 8 model, or 2 high schools and a 7 to 9 model. In June, the board received that report, and in July, the board met again and directed staff to really take the committee on grade structure report and refine it, to go into detail into the options. They wanted to see really more specific. And so the task was modified status quo, again 6 to 8, 9 to 12, and 7 to 9, 10 to 12, with 2 secondary schools being Vanier and Highland. And so I started my work with district staff here, and I want to actually pause there and acknowledge Ron Emus for his work on generating thousands of spreadsheets over the summer, or at least 10. But it always comes down to going over to Ron and saying, will you please do this and will you please move that? So thank you for that and training us. The challenge in doing that was really twofold. One, by the time August 25th came along, I was ready and presented my draft to the board. But I wanted to give people a flavor of some of the complexity that happens. In the committee on grade structure, one of the things that didn't happen was there was no model for 6 to 8 middle school. If you look through the report, you will see, and by models I mean a flow chart that says here's what it looks like for status quo, and here's what it looks like for 6 to 8, and here's 7 to 9. And the reason for that was when they looked at that model with 3 secondary schools, they ran into a number of challenges. And so they developed a flow chart for 7 to 9 in 3 secondary schools, but not for 6 to 8. So one of the things I had to do was go back into the notes of the Committee on Grade Structure, try and pull out a 6 to 8 model, which I felt accurately reflected the conversation of 20 people over the period of a month. And then have to make some decisions around which specific model to go at in terms of the details. And to give you an idea what that looks like, if you consider the task in front of the board, if they want to consider something like the size of our secondary schools at Lake Trail and at Cumberland Junior, the Committee on Grade Structure talked about that. It was an issue. They said, one of the questions is, are they viable? Should there be a consultation process? So if I'm going to work with district staff and develop models, do I do the models with Lake Trail 8 to 10? And develop one model, and then 7 to 9, and develop another model, and then close, and develop another model. And if I do that, I put the board in a really tough spot, because they would literally be presenting to the public 15 or 20 models where the feedback might be, please tell us what we're consulting on. So the August 25th piece around delivering that report to the board was a chance for me to get the feedback from them around what specifics did they want from that point. So obviously, if people read that 25th report, what you'll see is a first draft, and you'll see questions in front of the board around where to from here. So we began the process from there, we being district staff and the board around editing the document, and that finished last Thursday night, I think the 10th, where I sat over there at that machine with the board and senior staff, and we put up the screen and finished off the document that you see in front of you. So what I want to do now is to give you really some brush strokes on the report, and I don't intend to read to you which you can already read, but I just want to explain some of the format of the report. And so I'm going to just land on a couple things in each model, and I'll just say straight out, please don't interpret that as leaning to one model or the other. If I pick 3 bullets to read from option A and 3 from B and 6 from C, it's just my choice around highlighting the report. So in modified status quo, and in the other options, I'm looking at page 6 of the report. What we did was we said, let's just give a bulleted explanation of what this option really considers. In this one, this would change the grade structure Cumberland Junior and Lake Trail from 8 to 10 to 7 to 9. All other grade structures in the district would remain in place. We would move the boundary between Isfeld and Highland to McDonald Road from Anderton to alleviate overcrowding at Isfeld and to boost Highlands enrollment in the long run. And we move the boundary between Valley View and Queenish from Ryan Road to 6th Street East. And again, when you draw a boundary with current enrollment, a place like 6th Street East is an approximation. Again, it's looking at that's about how many students we would want to capture, but it doesn't necessarily mean that specific street, but it's to give you an idea of how far that boundary has to move across Ryan Road. So in each option, then you'll see timelines for implementation, you'll see the flow charts of how the schools feed, and what we did on these, some issues to be considered was we wanted to be able to say to the public, here's an issue and here is an implication for the board. So for example, again, I'll just pick a few. If Cumberland Junior remains 8 to 10, one of the implications is there's overcapacity at Cumberland Elementary, and that remains an issue. If Cumberland Junior moves to 7 to 9, then you relieve the capacity of Cumberland Elementary, but you run into concerns about the small size of Royston Elementary because you're moving the grade 7 students typically from Royston to Cumberland. Throughout and in every model, the size of Cumberland Junior and Lake Trail was a concern for the Committee on Grade Structure, and it's been a question for the board. And so we simply put, very small middle and junior schools have an issue around their long-term viability, and the board may consider closure. And again, that's for all. I'm going to go down to the boundaries between Queenish and Valley View. One of the things that the board has to consider when you move boundaries is that you can't just draw a boundary and expect that the world will change tomorrow. There are students there already attending those schools and those catchments. They have brothers and sisters in those schools, and so we have sibling rules. So one of the things the board would have to do on the movement of any boundary in any model is think about how long do you want it take before the boundary takes effect. It would be a dramatic change to draw a boundary, redraw a boundary anywhere, and then say to all of the students in those catchments, you have a new school, and move them all. That would be a pretty disruptive thing to do, so I highlighted that. On the next page, I listed the impact of full-day kindergarten district-wide, and again said that, depending on the extent of implementation, there may be additional capacity issues. And in the bottom, it shows you that no matter how much editing you do, you never catch every typo. Under long-term capacity, we put if there is no resolution for the capacity of Cumberland, Valley View, Brooklyn, and Isbell there. I'm not sure what we were thinking after there, but what I was trying to say was if you don't do anything to Cumberland, Valley View, Brooklyn, and Isbell, you're going to have long-term issues with capacity there, and some schools will require continued use of portables. We move to the cost for implementation, and again, make these comments here, but they pertain to every model. There was a desire to have the cost split into ongoing costs and one-time costs, and to show the public that for every implementation model, there would be a range of costs. So, for example, if you have something like teacher prep time where it's a contractual obligation, there really is no range. We have an obligation to pay X, and the board would pay X. But if you've got something like converting the vacant shop at Queenish or Aspen or Cape Lazo where we have $300,000, $100 for each school, that's an option that the board could exercise or could not exercise. So in each model, when you see the budget broken out that way, what the board is really attempting to say with senior management is the range of implementation costs is from the right-hand column, 30, to the left-hand column, 430. And so that's the way the budget reads in each case. And finally, I put down implementation timelines, and again, what I wanted to highlight there is, I think in every model, the implementation timeline says could begin, and we haven't engaged in conversations around what exactly that entails on the implementation year. So it doesn't mean that on that year, bang, the world will change and everything will be implemented at once. It means that's when the board would look for that model to be taking effect. And skip to, or point you to the maps. One of the nice changes, appreciated, was a suggestion that maps are a little easier to read, and hopefully these maps on page 10 and 11 and the other ones in the report are clearer for the public. Thank you to Google Maps for your maps ability to draw on them. The three secondary school 6-8 model you see on page 12, the considerations for that model, and this is where we had to make some real choices in absence of a spiritual model from the Committee on Grade Structure. We restructure all elementary schools to K to 5, restructure Lake Trail and Cumberland Junior to 6 to 8, restructure Queenish to 6 to 8, and this is one for readers of the report to really pay attention to the complexities around this because it's a tricky thing to do. This would include moving the elementary school students currently at Queenish to Airport, Q-Band, and Valley View, or reopening Glacier View Elementary and relocating students from Queenish to Glacier View. Either of those, the reason I say they're tricky is you have to look beyond the reallocation of the students, for example, in the first bullet to Queenish to Airport, Q-Band, and Valley View. You need to follow the model out and see where those students would go when they get to middle school, because Queenish ends up being a large school. Restructuring Vanier, Highland, and Isbell, reopening Cape Lazo as a 6 to 8. We put in not reopening Aspen Park, just so there was no confusion that Aspen Park was not considered to reopen. relocating French immersion in the middle years, and if Glacier View is reopened, you see the relocation of our Learning Resource Center, alternate programs, information technology department, police space or district space. On page 14, just again to point to a couple of the issues, under restructuring and creating 6 to 8 middle schools at Lake Trail, Cumberland, and Cape Lazo, one of the implications to draw people's attention is that you end up with several small elementary schools, Royston, Courtney Airport, Miracle Beach, and excess capacity in some areas, and the board may consider closures, concern about small schools on the island schools, and again you see other comments about Cumberland Junior and Lake Trail. And I don't think I'll highlight any more on that list there other than the location of the French immersion in the middle years, that with the size of Queenish being an issue, the board may consider moving French immersion to Lake Trail. So I will flip to actually page 16, if you have the agenda there and looking at it. And this is a case where I want to just say that the models that we developed, they really are for purposes of illustrating how it might look. So, for example, on page 16, if you look down the left-hand column to middle schools, and you see Queenish with a capacity of 600. Well, Queenish, as it currently is, doesn't have a capacity of 600 because it's got a bunch of district programs there in it right now. But if you were to convert it to a middle school, that was the original capacity of the school. So you see what looks odd with a September 19th or 2009 enrollment of 315 representing an elementary school, and then the next year 850 as a middle school. And what I was trying to point out there is the 850, I don't really think the board would run a middle school of 850 schools or 850 students at Queenish. That would be a big challenge. But if you look at the models, again, it's just showing that those are the numbers of students who would be there, and the board would have to do something about that through consultation. Excuse me. So the two secondary, 7 to 9, restructuring, all elementary schools K to 6, restructuring Vanny, Highland 10 to 12. Isfeld, changing from the secondary school to a 7 to 9 middle school. The board needs to consider a timeline and process for implementation, relocating secondary French immersion to Highland and middle immersion to Isfeld. We highlighted the overcapacity of 2 secondary schools if that model was implemented too early, prior to 2013, and consideration for the optimum size of middle school at Isfeld. One thing to note there on the timeline for implementation is, of course, as a reminder, that Cape Lazo is not available until 2011. It is in a lease agreement, as everyone knows, with the Francophone Authority, and until they have a building built, we won't have access to Cape Lazo as far as we understand. So you see on the next page 18, it's more of the same issues, and I don't think I will draw any more to people's attention. Again, there's similar comments to other models, but I hope that gives you a flavor for how the report is written and what it looks like, and allows you to read it and form your opinions and give your thoughts to the board.
Okay, so just a little bit about the consultation process and timeline. We would like to receive input on this report by October the 16th, and then make a decision with respect to this on October 27th. Doesn't mean to say if we receive some feedback after the 16th, we won't accept it and pay heed to it. It's just we hope people can get it in by the 16th so that we have an adequate time to really absorb what you're telling us. The opportunities through online forms that will be on the website.
We're working
on it? Okay.
I would say by the end of this week.
Okay. You should know that if you complete that online form and submit some feedback, it will be posted to the website. This time we would like to make that abundantly clear right off the bat that all of this type of feedback will be posted for the public, perhaps once a week or every few days as Debbie's time permits. You can send us letters, which will also be posted to the website. Of course, you can always call us. You can send us individual emails or telephone us if you like, or stop us on the street or when we're buying groceries. Whatever works for you. We will have some formal consultation opportunities at all 3 of our senior secondary schools. And what we'll do is we'll meet with students in the afternoon, and Jordan and Sherry will be coordinating that with the principals of the 3 secondary schools. And for the Vanier one, students will also be invited to come from Cumberland Junior and Lake Trail. So they'll do the work. They sort of know best how the format works at high school, and the board members will be in attendance to hear what the students have to say. Following school, we'll have meetings with the staff to hear what staff have to say about these issues. And in the evenings, at each one of those 3 schools, we'll have a public consultation. And what will happen is we'll do a brief presentation about what the options are, and the majority of the time will be spent listening to what the public has to say and what they feel we should do. So our goal was to provide some information that we thought would be helpful for the public to understand what the options are and to give us feedback. We hope that we've done that to the best of our ability. And there's one paragraph that I would like to read that is important to the board from our report, and it says this: "It is important to note that the board believes that public consultation may result in modifications to the suggested options for grade structure. Through the consultation process on the options, the community may suggest solutions that are not already contemplated in this report. In the event that the board wishes to adopt one or more of these solutions, the board will work with management to integrate these solutions into the overall plan for the district." It's just our acknowledgement that we're not perfect. We probably didn't think of everything, and I think there's a lot of people out there that have pretty good insights and might want to share those with us, and we really do want to hear what you have to say. So that's pretty much it for the presentation of the report. Don't know if trustees have anything they would like to ask or comment on. What a quiet time. Wow, okay. Well, that being said, then we'll go to the, did staff have any concluding comments? No? Okay. That being said, then we'll go to the questions and inquiries portion of our meeting this evening. Anyone have any questions or inquiries? Sheila?
Actually, I concerned when I heard you in the context of a public consultation process talking about accepting input in the grocery store or, whatever. If you're going to do a good public consultation, to have a lot of confidence in that everything that is bearing on your decision-making needs to be in the public record. And that means that I think you should encourage people who approach in the grocery store or at home to go to public meetings and speak in public or on the record or put it in writing, and that otherwise you don't consider it, you don't get anecdotal, I was told this, I was taught that when speaking in public, you just say, we need that input on the record. So I really urge all of you, if you are committed to a public, transparent, and credible public consultation process, that you are very careful about the type of input you receive, casually that's not on the record. And just don't use that as the basis of your persuasive argument or your deliberations. Okay?
Thank you for your comments. We'll consider that. Anyone else? Marilyn?
I'm also wondering if you could clarify for the public how you go about getting clarifying information about what is contained in the report. And you are, of course, aware that I sat as a member on the ad hoc committees that have had access to lots of that information. And I also have a copy of the original draft report that was prepared by Superintendent on August 25th. Which includes, in my opinion, quite a bit more information that I think would have a bearing on how individuals would choose to respond. And I'm wondering if the public needs to have clarification around which version they respond to, or if we want to know what is actually data. So, for example, if perhaps it could relate to the Farragar projections. How do we get that information?
Okay, well, thanks, because this does give me an opportunity to provide clarity. The board did talk about the August the 25th draft, and we really had nothing to hide. And so if people do want to come to the board office and get a copy, they're free to do so. Okay, so...
Could you consider maybe putting it on the website, because I know there's a meeting section
We did talk about that, and I think that, you point out a good point, which report is the one that people would respond to. And we also considered that, and we felt that it would be the final draft that we're presenting this evening that we would like to receive feedback on. So that would be on the website. There should be access to the Committee on Grade Structure report, which has comprehensive information, as you mentioned, on the website as well. Did I miss something in there? Oh, yes, clarification on some issues. Depending on what issues you would like clarification on, do you feel that it's something for this evening, or?
Well, I think, there's quite a bit, because I've gone through both reports and I've highlighted where there's difference, and I don't want to tie up, this meeting by going into that minutia. My understanding is that that's the purpose of the public consultation. But, for example, we talk about, the options that we're putting out to the public, ask them what they would consider would be viable. One specific option that was included in that draft report was, under the modified status quo, was a boundary change, a second boundary change. And there are catchment maps, and it has an impact on parents who live in a certain area. That isn't included in the revised report. So if, having completed a very in-depth analysis over the summer, the district staff has concluded that this possibly could be a solution to balancing the enrollment in our high schools, I think that people will be interested in knowing that that is an option that exists, and they'd be interested in having input into that. I would certainly like to be able to ask questions around, to what extent would this alleviate, the low potential school enrollment on the board at Highland, to what extent would it have an impact on, the long-term enrollment at Banning. So, I think there's a lot of information in that report that is quite germane, that just hasn't come out. And people who are entering into this process who really want to come up with solutions would like to be able to look at it and be able to understand more about it. So.
Well, it's interesting on the map question. The comment from the board was that the previous big maps with a bunch of dots and lines were really difficult to understand. So our input was to Jordan to make different maps. So I'm not sure.
Well, it actually wasn't just the map; it was that whole option was dropped entirely. It says in here that, and I don't want to, I really don't want to go into detail. I don't want to. But one of the options was that there would be two boundary changes, and the first boundary change would be to move the Isbell boundary from McDonald Road back to Anderson Road. But then, in order to ensure that Isbell's population was then stabilized, because of course that's taking many students out of the Highland, a second option that the superintendent recommended that the board ask the public about would be then to do another boundary change affecting the Vanier zone. So it would move the Isbell's boundary back to Redlands Parkway. I believe that was the boundary that was included in there. And that would then have the impact of bringing some Vanier students into the Isbell catchment. And, it could potentially have an impact on stabilizing those.
I think that probably that would best be in a conversation with Jordan at some point. But I think there's one point perhaps to be made. Maybe you could elaborate, Jordan, on what effect a boundary change would have on a population of a school. So, for example, how big of an effect is there if we change the boundary between Isbell and Highland, or the boundary between Queenish and Valley View?
Well, the extent of the effect depends on where the boundary goes. But let's just take the comment about moving the boundary from Anderton to McDonald. So if I remember correctly, and I'm looking back at Ron here, there are about 250 students in grades 8 to 12 between Anderton Road and McDonald Road. And so in those 250 students currently, it's equally split. About 125 go to Highland, about 125 go to Isbell. So if the board wanted to move the boundary to McDonald Road, you would do that. But then, this is what I meant by my timeline piece, then you have to enforce that. And so then you've got 125 students and families, or 125 students from families caught in that, and the board has to decide, are you going to force them to go next year, or are you going to force them to go, when their siblings are gone, or just what is your timeline? So the boundary changes typically have a smaller impact than it appears. For example, on the 6th Street East move for Quinish and Valley View, if you only move the students who are in kindergarten, and that was your approach to how you're going to do it, there are only about 6 or 7 students currently between 6th Street East and Ryan Road attending Valley View. So it's a very small impact. So it really comes down to a very difficult decision for the board around at what point when you make a boundary change do you say, this is it, and those families are going to move. And then depending on the extent of the boundary change, the other part is, if it's a substantial inconvenience for people or more than the boundary limit for the walk distance, then you have to consider transportation as well.
Does that help?
Well, except I just found a section of the report in one sentence, because indulgent to read it out. It's actually in the original report, and it says, where you talk about the boundary changes, the second option, because there was actually 2 options presented. It says the second option includes balancing some students from Vanier to Isbell once we have moved students from Isbell entirely. And then there's another statement. Again, these are options for conversation with the public. And I guess really what gets to my concern is that if the superintendent and the district staff, Ron in this particular, have looked at those boundaries and they see that this could potentially provide relief and it could potentially be a solution, and they are recommending, or the superintendent is recommending, that these are options for conversation with the public. My question is, why was that, as an option, taken out of the revised report? And this is one example of other things that are removed from the report. So it just gets to the whole question of I understand completely that you don't want to overwhelm the public with too much information, but this seems to be a solution that the superintendent felt could potentially work in the public research. Now the public isn't, or wouldn't have been aware of it had this not come out. So how do you go about addressing those kinds of issues when you look at both reports?
I'll make 2 comments. One is that the report that we are going to consult the public on is the final draft that has been presented this evening. And 2, not one board member gave any direction that item that you have described there should be removed from the report. Jordan did considerable work on the report after August the 25th. And we got input from our senior staff who were not available really prior to August the 25th, many of them. And the board also gave some input with respect to that. And so Jordan would have made changes to the information based on his expertise, and for reasons that are not known to me or probably any board member, that is not contained in the final report.
I guess that's why it would have been in the best interest, I think, because conversations around your receipt of the report has been held in public, because we who have made that call. And now we don't know.
So I guess, I've worked for a lot of different organizations and in the university written papers, and it's really common for final reports to go through many stages and have, input by many people prior to coming to their final draft. This is no different. Our intention in releasing this to the public, should they want to come in here, is so that their fears can be quelled, that we somehow come out with something wildly different than what was described by the Committee on Grade Structure. That's why we thought we would release that report to the public. Okay? So I can move on now. Is there anyone else with a question? Jana?
Just a bit confused. You're using the words final draft and final report. Now, To me, a final draft means there's yet to be another
Oh,
one.
sorry, I apologize, this is the final report this evening, it's not a draft.
Okay. So is this report going to form any basis of how you make up your decision at the end of October on how you each vote?
Well, not really. I suppose in a way, maybe, what we're going to do is use the information contained in the report to come to the public and ask what you think we should be doing in the future.
Where I'm concerned is you're looking at your fellow board members asking them questions, but it's not like they're just receiving this report for the first time.
Right.
They actually, in fact, co-authored it, and then you're going to vote on it. And that, to me, that just does not sound like we've got transparency, everything happening that we should have.
The issue before us is we've tried to construct a report that works for the public. I hope that you are able to take a look. Maybe Marilyn will share her copy of the August 25th report to you. You'll see that structurally the report is quite different. The August 25th report is quite a lot of narrative in there. It's not bullet points, which seem to work better for the public. There's quite a few changes that way. The material facts of the report are not really any different than what was presented by the Committee on Grade Structure or in Jordan's August 25th report.
So you didn't feel that, as a public, that we had the ability to read what he had written, that we weren't smart enough, that he needed to dumb it down for us?
No, I didn't think that at all. It's presented, I think, in a format that is easy to understand by the public, and this is work that is common when you put together a report for the public.
Is it common for a superintendent's report to be discussed and changed? I had the understanding that the superintendent's report was a report that was for the public and not for a school board or anything else. But that's why she's the superintendent, that the report should be something that we get to see. Is it common that a superintendent's report is taken and discussed and then rewritten? Or is this a new way of doing things?
This is a district report, in fact. It's not a superintendent's report. Is there another question?
So that means, sorry, I don't understand that. So this is not a superintendent's report?
No.
We're calling it that from the very beginning.
If I've done that, I apologize. It's not. It's a district report.
So when the superintendent provides you with a report that suggests that the public have input in, you then decide what part of that report we get to see, that we get to input in?
This is not a superintendent's report. We do receive a lot of superintendent's reports that he presents to us for informational purposes. We get those all the time. This is not such a report. This is a report created to form the foundation of the public consultation. Okay? Bart?
I just had a question of clarification regarding page 3 under the consultation process. The board will be using public forums in each of these sectors. And then the sentence after that says at each school, hold separate forum. Is that each of the secondary?
Yeah.
And what about the remaining schools in our district? What's the best way for them to engage in this process?
They could maybe come to the feeder school that their school goes to. So, for example, if you're a Miracle Beach teacher and you want to give some input, maybe come to the Vanier one.
Will they be going on during the instructional time?
No, it's after school. It's on a voluntary basis. We wish we had a lot of money and we could have everybody come and give them a day off to do it. We can't.
Potentially all of the schools in the district could be tested.
They could wish?
All of the districts, all of the schools could be tested, not just the two secondary.
Yeah, but you have to, we couldn't potentially have 20 consultation meetings. That would be pretty difficult.
What's the best way for them to engage in the process?
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Shelley?
This board has consistently said that they, probably ease into something if we drop the hammer, which happened before, which presents its own set of issues. And my concern is how you gradually do it and gradually move grades out to the appropriate school. How does this affect music programs, sports programs, which provide a lot of community rah-rah for the schools and stuff like that? If you're doing it gradually and moving kids here, there, and everywhere, it kind of decimates both the music performance and sports.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that with the reconfiguration last year, we pretty much decimated 7 schools in that manner. We really are mindful of people's feelings and the emotions that go with this, and we try to do this as passionately as we can, no matter which option we end up pursuing. And so you're not seeing here that we're going to go in and overnight do something. We want it to be a thoughtful, caring process that does not drive people batty.
If you're moving kids out, how do you sustain some of those programs? They're not just only in grade 12, only grade 11, not sports, combined grades. I'm assuming the musical performance groups are combined grades. So if you're moving one out and leaving them, how, that affects morale a lot.
Yeah.
And
Morale is a big deal,
throughout
Les.
school.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know how to answer that other than we will work with the schools like we have been trying to do for the past year to make it work the best we can. Right?
So at the sessions that the public consultation sessions at Concord High School, will there be a facilitator?
We don't have the complete details ironed out. Something that you should know is it's not intended to be a discussion with the board. We want to hear what people think about this. We truly haven't formed our opinion on where we're going with this. So it'll probably be something along the lines of people can speak for a certain number of minutes to tell us what you think. Maybe if you have a question like, gee, what's the enrollment at airport this year? We would get Jordan or an appropriate person to answer that question, but we're not going to make any comments with regards to our opinions on things.
You're just sort of there to listen.
Yeah.
Okay? And would all the trustees be at all 3 meetings then?
It's a lot of meetings. I'm not sure. Hopefully, everybody that's available can go. People have different schedules. Some of us work full-time in day jobs, so we do the best we can. I don't think that you're, hopefully, I hope you're not going to see just 1 or 2 of us sitting there. Do our best.
Not because I think I'm partially responsible for paying your salary, and if I told my boss that I was in town, I realize it might be outside the scope and a little bit extra, but that is the process that everybody needs in the finance. So I would appreciate it immensely if
We will do our best, as we usually do. You want to say something?
Yes, unfortunately, I have a family commitment out of province that was actually prearranged prior to this, so I will unfortunately miss one of those meetings. I have actually taken time off work to come to the other ones there, but I want to make that announcement. This is a family commitment out of province that I'm leaving next week on, and I can't change that, so I do apologize. So, but I wanted to give my name and my phone number to anybody that wants to corral me and let me know otherwise. So, but I do intend to be in all the other ones. I'm taking time off work to participate.
Anyone else? Okay.
I would sort of like to see the board take the information that has been put together through the ad hoc report. You guys are the ones that should be looking at what you feel is the best for our kids. I mean, as a group of 50,000 people that way, we're not all going to come up with the same thing. We're just not going to. So I would like to see you go to, at the consultation, present what you feel is the best way. Be open for questions and back up why you've chosen this or this or this or this. And be able to give sound fiscal, give educational reasons why you're making the choices. That's what you're elected to do.
And we hopefully will do that on October the 27th, but not before that. We need to hear from the public to help inform our choice on this thing.
But I think we have to be careful with micromanagement, because there's so much. I mean, 50,000 people just aren't going to come up with the same.
That's right. That's right. They won't. Ellie?
I assume that every single trustee will vote on how to move forward October 27th. I hope it's not out of an unfair question, but I would like to know, with regards to feedback, what is it every single trustee is looking to hear? I would like to know if it's, well, 51 said this, 49 said that, and that's how I base my decision, or whether I heard very strong motions from 10 people that swayed me out of the 1,000 people. I want to know what every single trustee is looking for in feedback, because to date, I've been working very hard to get people to contact school board members. I have heard nothing but
We don't need change. We want stability in our schools. I've read the reports from the principals and vice principals. I've read reports and talked to Pat, and I'm not hearing the same feedback that you're hearing. So I wanted the trustees to let us know what they're going to base their decision on, so that we as the public can then give feedback based on how you will make a decision, because this is, the feedback issue to me is unclear. I'm hearing one thing, you are hearing something else, or at least you're basing decisions on something different than what I'm hearing, I feel everyone else is saying. So I'd like to hear from other trustees, not just how they're going to do it.
We're going to proceed with the consultation process, and that's what our decision is, and that's how we're going to do it. So that's...
Is it fair to ask every trustee just to let us know how they're going to be making this decision?
Actually, I don't think so. We're going to be receiving feedback from the public, and on October the 27th, you will hear us articulate why we feel the way we do.
So if feedback is 90% no changes, 10% we want change, then you say you will make a decision based on that, and we don't know?
Each trustee will use their own way of making a decision. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I know last year when I was speaking to issues, I was quite clear about what I thought I heard in the public.
Is it possible to let every...
This is intended to be a question and answer, not a dialogue with the board. So I think we're gonna need to move on, I think. Gentlemen, you have a question? Yeah, no, they have their own minds, and you'll know what it is on October 27th. Do we have another question in the room?
Yeah, I'd like to hear them.
Sorry?
I was just curious, if during that public consultation process, another option comes up, something that is quite different than what's contained in the report so far, how will you deal with that? Like, will you then put it together as another option and put out an amended report? Or just, like, in thinking that a month is probably a great amount of time to have consultation, it's fast at this point, make it happen. But for you guys to react in only a week after that, sounds to me like a small enough time, not that I want to look across them in any way, shape, or form. I'm just curious, do you come up with some other option?
An option remains open for us to actually not go forward with something on October the 27th. That is something that we would consider, depending on what we hear. We don't know what we're going to hear. Yeah. Tom has something to say?
So I'm not going, I agree with Susan's position that this isn't the time for trustees to say, but what I'll say that I've been on record at this meeting to be very clear as to what my gauge is, and that is an operational and educational imperative. In fact, language that was bootlegged by Principal in their report. But be that as it may, the other thing that I do want to comment as a trustee, and it follows up for a question that came last week, I don't view all the feedback that I get equally. And I'll be very clear about that. There are people who are clearly more informed around and have more inside information around the functioning of a school district than others. I'm very interested in the public viewpoint. But I'll tell you that there's a percentage of the public whose opinions I'm not really interested in. And those are the folks who sat on their hands the last time around and waved the flag at the previous board that led us down this road in the first place. So you can decide what camp you're in, but I'll be very blunt. I'm not particularly interested in what you have to say.
Next question? Just a sec. We're going to just let everyone have one kick at the cat before we go to a second person. Does anyone new have a question they would like to ask?
I don't have a question, just comment. I'm pretty new. Tom pointed out I'm uninformed, but I'm here to be informed. And I am blown away that you sit there and speak on behalf of 7 people completely shut down certain questions on the floor.
Thank you for your comment. Sheila? Go second round.
I'm just wondering how confident that he knows who those people are and who wants to discount. Because I obviously am quite critical of the current process, so I was very critical
person to make a decision on our behalf. And I wonder if you understand the impact on a school like Lake Trail, where the decision or the lack of decision, the uncertainty about potentially going back, what it's doing to the situation. Now, when the original proposal was to go to a full 8 to 12, it was a bit of a shock to people, and it was an unknown, and there was a discussion about...
Sheila, do you have a question in there somewhere?
Yeah, I do have a discussion with Council.
Okay.
And so, you may be under the impression that parents in the Lake Trail area actually said no to going to grade 12. I believe that being at the meeting, that parents said no to going to grade 12 now because there was no coherent plan for grade 11 at the time. But that it was not dismissed, that people were interested and would like the chance to explore it. But what is happening now, with options that may result in 2013 in Lake Trail disappearing or turning into an elementary or something, is that it is just voting. And that we, as a path, who might have sat down and started to get scholarships and field programs, are going, what the hell? We're out of here. My kid's out of here before this happens anymore. So I really wonder if you understand the impact, and if Tom can be that confident in how he judges who to take and who not. But if you understand how this process, in the light of it being put forward as open consultation, because of it being wonderful open consultation, being in line with discussion and understanding the type of leadership that we would bring on. And I'm concerned when you talk about wanting to hear from the public and somehow taking all that input from the public. I feel like my kid's in open heart surgery right now, and the doctors have the plan, but somebody is saying, we gotta go out and ask the public what they think we should do.
So are you saying we shouldn't consult the public ever about decisions that we make? That's what you seem to be saying to me.
I'm saying that you have adequate information at hand now to make a proper decision without going out. So what my question was, can I have any confidence in you using the types of filters? Tom says he doesn't believe all this input is equal. And then he says that it's based on whether people support the path forward or not. I would like to know that the decision you make is based on the merits of the plan, and that those merits should be about educational value, financial responsibility, the capacity, and psychological stress to all the rest of us. And the report from the committee was pretty clear on the one choice that left you with. So please, I know you're going to go through this public input, and I know that I did have a chance to have input. You've heard me on this topic before, so I'm hoping lots of other people come forward. But for God's sake, bring your decision-making and your understanding of what that input is. Judge it on the merits, not on political partisanship, and not on anecdotal, and not on your prejudices.
So let me respond to because the test for me isn't whether you supported the last board. That's not the test. The test, because there's lots of people engaged in this process who asked really good questions of the last board, and who are asking really good questions of us. And I think that's great. That's how it ought to be. I'm puzzled by folks who asked no questions the last time and are asking lots of questions now. And a lot of the questions are the same. And they're good questions, and the board ought to be able to answer them. That's part of our test when we make our decision. So please, no one leave here under the assumption that if you supported the last board, you're persona non grata in my mind. Absolutely not. There's lots of folks who supported the last board who asked really, really good questions and who are asking them now again. It's those that didn't ask any questions the last time, but are asking questions now. I'm curious.
I guess my response is that last November, the public wished for a change in the board, and we were elected what we stand for is a different kind of process, and that's what you're seeing unfold here, a different sort of process. We're not going to make a decision on this until we hear what the public has to say on this. Marilyn?
Okay, I do, when you talk about a different kind of process, I would like to just remind you that, I think this is very much part of the public record if anyone is so inclined to go back and look. At one of the earlier board meetings this year, where you talked about reopening this discussion, there was a round table where each individual trustee was able to talk about where they were coming from with this, and, what their goals and expectations and hopes were for this. And, quite clearly there was consensus that it was your sense that the public needed the direction, and it didn't need a long and dragged-out process. That culminated in the appointment of the ad hoc committee, and around that time, you came up with the October 27th date. And I think certainly Trustee Weber was quite clear that he felt that a decision needed to be made. We have heard from Sheila speak, quite passionately, and I think quite accurately, about the impact that uncertainty is having on Laketrail School. That uncertainty is having an impact on every school in this district. It's having an impact on administrators, students, staff, and families. And now, you took great care to preamble your discussion tonight by taking a quote from the paper when you say, well, we may not make a decision on October 27th. We may come up with another process altogether. There may be additional information that will come forward. Can you realistically look at the people in this room and expect us to believe that the people who have the solutions have not yet come forward with those solutions? But where do you think the grand solution lies? Does it not lie within the people who've already been engaged? Don't you think that the administrators, the principals, the vice principals, the teachers, the support staff know what those solutions are? So why do you think now we can have confidence in this process? And how different is it from what you have criticized as having gone before? We're here on September 15th. We have until October 16th to give you further input on a report that people have not had much of an opportunity to really grasp in any amount of detail. And why can you expect us to have confidence in that as a process?
I have full confidence that we will move forward in a thoughtful way, just as we have since we've been elected. We have not made rash decisions. We have tried our best not to disrupt the staff in this district. We made decisions to spend probably more money than we should have for this year in order to make sure that staff had some peace for the year, that class sizes were the best they could be, and so forth. We have not moved rashly, and we're not going to move rashly now. I think that's reflected in the report, and I hope that you follow this process along, and I hope that you come to our October 27th meeting and hear what we have to say. I too look forward to the conclusion of this process, and my hope is that it concludes October 27th.
It's potentially not going to conclude.
I can't say, because I cannot actually speak for how my fellow trustees will vote. I get one vote, and that's the way it is on board motions. I'm going to move on now. Did you have a question, Shelley?
I'm just curious why there isn't a general meeting that is more inviting to the public of the Fremont Valley. The way it's set up, you're talking to students, you're talking to staff, which is totally great, totally on board with that. But then the parents and staff, you're really separating the communities. It's almost like, why can't there just be a general meeting where everybody comes together, open to the public of the valley? Like, I know my neighbors who don't have kids that have, are taxpayers that have concerns. They don't feel like this setup is meant for them, it's meant for the parents of the students that go there, so they're not going to feel comfortable going, whereas a general meeting open to the residents of Fremont Valley in the school district of New York would be something they would feel more comfortable going.
So it's interesting that we keep receiving feedback from people on how we should be doing this. Clearly we have been elected to try to survey things and to see how we would best proceed. And in our opinion, this would hopefully create safe environments for people to come and say what they think. I felt that in the last process, perhaps sometimes staff wasn't always feeling free to tell us what they thought. We never had any meetings with students, and we would like to hear from all of these different people. The school communities are different, and we would like to hear what they all have to say about this, and that's why we have constructed this process. Have you had a second chance already, Shannon? Okay, I don't want to cheat. Okay, go.
I must say, I'm absolutely insulted by your comments, Tom. Insulted. I don't even have any other words. I feel that my time is completely wasted coming to these meetings now. But now that you have allowed one trustee to speak on this issue, I believe that has opened up the door for all the rest of the trustees to speak on this issue. Could you please ask the trustees?
No, we've already dealt with that. Could I have another question, please?
This is a question and answer period, and you're blowing off the question.
Does anyone have another question? Jean Rowe. No, sorry, Jean is up next.
I'm here tonight thinking that the trustees were actually going to comment on this report. And so somewhere, sometime, each and every one of you have discussed this report. And you're not making it public on what your individual thoughts are. So what I hear, and I've had many, many, especially lately, phone calls, people stopping me in the grocery store, and people saying, people that were dead against what we did, and at the previous board, and they just want to move ahead. Now that people do not want to waste district money. We know that we can't afford it with the government cuts, with the amount of money we don't have right now. So we're proceeding with this process, which should not be, and every one of you know it, but you won't say anything public at all. Neither one of you are saying anything about these things, and everyone is letting Susan Barr speak to you. So what my point is, I'm hearing that the district is in pretty good shape. Most people are settling in. Last year was a big upheaval. It was very, very difficult. We knew that as a board. It was very hard for everyone. We know that. And we knew that at the time. That's why at that point the superintendent said, let's just get it all done with. Well, actually the board said, let's get it done with all at once so that it doesn't impact people over the years and it doesn't cause this angst that you're causing right now over and over and over. So I guess my question is, because this board, all of you on the board right here, feel that this district, you're thinking that this district, you're hearing that it's in total chaos, are you prepared to fire Dr. George City tonight? Because he's the cause of this terrible, terrible mess we're in. And I tell you something, I will be the first.
All I can say, Jean, is that that's.
The board first, because he is a leader, and you're not taking his report and listening and discussing his report in public, yet you take his report and you rewrite his report. You rewrite his report as a board. And then you come here in the public, and one trustee says he doesn't want to hear from anyone that voted for the other board, basically, and that you're speaking for every single one of these members. I can't believe you guys are sitting there and listening to a board chair, and you're not expressing what you're supposed to be expressing in this report tonight. I'll tell you something. I would hope that every single one of you do not get nose infections from that gold ring that she's got around your nose and she's leading you around on. I'll tell you right now.
So thanks for those comments, Jean. I've answered, I'm sorry, I have an answer for her. We've answered most of those things here this evening.
So are you prepared to fire Dr. Jordan City?
I'm not going, for the record, what I would like to say though, is that when you hear these things, this is question and answer period, and I would like an opportunity to answer. When you hear people give you feedback on the street, let them know that we can't listen to hearsay through Jean Rowe to the board. Let them know that they need to come to the public meeting. Okay, we're going to take a couple of minutes recess so that we can calm the room down. I would like to hear from people, so we'll just take a couple of minutes out here. Come to every meeting of this board pretty much and have held our feet to the fire with hard questions. You know who you are, and I don't need to point you out. You've always done so very respectfully, and I have certainly appreciated that. And we would like to continue to answer your questions, But it is question and answer period. It needs to be done in a respectful way, and I hope that we can continue on in that manner now. So I would like to give my response to Jean, and just to say that when people stop you or anyone else in the street and say that they're opposed to public consultation on this important issue, please tell them that for their opinion to count, they need to actually come to a public board meeting or fill out an online form then, or talk to us, because we're the ones making the decision. Do you have any more questions? Ellie?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go back to the feedback and method of feedback. So you're going to have these 3 public consultations where you are going to direct people to, you're going to give them the information, and then you will disregard conversations and direct feedback in the form of emails.
I'm sorry, I don't
You said
understand.
you're going to listen to feedback, but you're also saying that if we, or anybody, has people talking to us, that we're supposed to direct everybody to publish it online based on an online form.
That would be
at-
best.
Yeah, so at these 3 forums, you are going to disregard what's said and
No.
just read, or
We were having a conversation about that today. I think that or yesterday, was it? I don't know, the days run together sometimes. Perhaps we would get Debbie, to come and record those meetings. We wondered about televising them. We wondered about having people fill out something in writing, but I think probably the way we were leaning is to somebody taking notes, and we would publish those on the website.
just to clarify, if you get 10 million emails sent online saying, don't change anything, we've talked to all our teachers, they want status quo, we don't want any more change. But if at these forums you hear generally, well, we haven't advocated for change, what are you going to do?
I have no idea what we're going to hear. Really, I have no idea. We have
So
to wait to receive
what
all
do
of that
you hear?
feedback.
Okay. I'm
Here
trying to
we-
clarify how much feedback is given.
So I can tell you that anecdotally, the things that I was hearing on the street, people that would stop me and talk pretty much matched the feedback that we received on our online
I'm not
forums.
hearing your anecdotal feedback, and you're not hearing
Yeah.
what I'm hearing. And to me, the beginning of this process was based on what the board felt was an appetite, based on phone calls to their home and what people were telling them at the grocery store. So I really want to clarify to the public that if you want to get your point across, this is the most effective way to do it. If we have to publish all your phone numbers and get people phoning you at home
They do
saying,
phone us.
we don't want change, but I want to clarify for the public, this is the way that feedback will make a difference to this board's decision. I want it absolutely 100% guaranteed that we will be heard for what we are saying. So if email, great, we will all email, forget the forums.
Yeah.
But if going to the forum is going to make a difference, then we will herd the public. We just need to know what is going to sway you guys, one way or another.
Well, that's the thing. We're not really actually swayable. We haven't made our mind up about anything yet. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, the lady in the back.
I just want to ask a real basic question. I was here a week before the election, but I did not vote, so don't count me in.
Thank you.
But, I just want to know, like, with all the cutbacks and the government keeps taking money away, how can we possibly even be considering spending money on something that doesn't have to be changed right now? Like, is the world not going to end if the children are in grade 8 to 12 for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 more years? There's kids in the classroom that need maybe a special needs. I mean, the money that's spent here, we don't have, this is not excessive money, is it? Or am I wrong? We shouldn't be spending any extra money on something that does not directly in the classroom help the child. The classrooms that are there now. Because those kids that are trying to get through right now are the ones that are going to be totally disrupted by all of this. And my kids are in grade 1 and 3, and I don't want them to have to go through this and then be cut back because, oh, we spent this extra money, and now you can't have this because when we change your classroom, we don't have that money for this now. This is not necessary. Like maybe cleaning
having good janitors is necessary to keep the soap in the bathrooms so that they don't get H1N1. There's no discussion about anything but this, and I'm sorry, this is ludicrous to me. This is just ridiculous. This is not necessary for the kids right now in this world.
So I think for this evening, what we'll do is just consider statements like this, feedback on the report as we would if you would come to a meeting or send us an online form. Does anyone have a question this evening?
I have.
Do you have a question back there?
No, I have a comment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'm taking my teacher hat off with my parent hat on.
Okay.
Bill, it's all good. Last week's November musical at Marcus.
What are you putting on?
Assistant superintendent.
What are you putting on?
And again, I'm personally not, swayed with one particular model right now. I got bored one day and read them all in configuration.
Did you go to sleep?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
it took me there. But I will say, just as a parent, and I think what the board needs to think about, I'm sure you will, in research, there's a lot of evidence that supports middle school models, education, sound evidence. There's evidence that supports K to 12. There's evidence that supports K to 3. You can find it out there. But what I think that you need to also think about also is the evidence that supports the sense of belonging and identity to the kid's school. And I'll just use my daughter as I'm going to put it out on the line. And I'm not saying I want to go there personally, but this is what some of the kids are saying. I just want to be at one place for a while. And that's what I can be into. And I know I am working on my graduate work right now in that area of that sense of connecting to their school, to their community, to their teachers, and all those things. And I think that needs to be, as you guys, and I can show you the documents, and I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that, but I just think it's something that, you may want to look at as well. And I think that needs to be some kind of configuration area that you need to look at as well. Thanks.
No, we will. Just to be clear, there is some information that you don't have this evening that's not quite ready yet. Mr. Ibbs will be working on this, but we need to take a look at where we are financially. We would like to disclose to you how much money last year, in April of last year, so I believe we had $2 million in our surplus operating capital account. And we're waiting to get information back from Mr. Ibbs to find out how much surplus we have left to proceed after last year. Also in our local capital account, we're waiting for information, and he'll be presenting that at the September 22nd board meeting. We've done our very best to come up with a list of costs that we feel are very comprehensive so that you can give us your feedback with regards to this issue. I know that the last reconfiguration was projected to cost only $565,000. I personally raised concerns and said I think that is too low. The board didn't want to do anything about it. This time I have an opportunity to do something about it, and I think my fellow board members agree. We need to give you this information, and if the public feels that a certain amount of money is too much to spend, well, then they're going to tell us that, and we'll make a decision on October the 27th. And you need to come out and tell us what you think at our public meetings.
I'd like to ask a second question.
Okay, Jean, go ahead.
First, I'd like to withdraw that nose ring comment, because I don't want to be seen as stooping or low as Tom did when he commented on the people that didn't vote for.
Okay, I would just like to caution you to keep it to a question, please, Jean.
Yeah, I am. Well, I can make comments now because...
We're not going back to the bad old days of the last board, Jean. Please just ask your question.
Comments, so just remember that, but I do have a question. When can the public expect the board to be talking about student achievement? When can we actually expect the board discussing student achievement at a board meeting so that we, the public, know that you're really concerned about the 35% of the students that are not completing grade 12 in this district? I'm really concerned. We were really concerned with the last board, and no one's talking about it this time. 9 months has gone by, wasting money. So when can we expect a time frame when this board is going to be talking about student achievement?
My answer is that we've been doing that for 9 months. Someone else have a
Talking to
question?
the public about student achievement?
Excuse me, Jean, I've answered your question. Do we have another question from the floor? Shannon?
You keep referring to 3 days you're going to have this consultation, and Janice has apologized that one of the days she's not going to be here. So she must know what the dates are. She knows which one she's not going to be able to. Are the dates in here?
Yep, they're in the consultation report. We're going to be tying you folks up for 4 Tuesdays in a row. We'll have a board meeting on the 22nd of September. The 29th, I believe, we're at Highland. The next week, October the 6th, is called feedback was requested that date, so we're going to be there, and then the following week on the 13th at Vanier.
The schools looking for children. Are the parents allowed to be there at that time as well, or are we invited?
I think that's something we're going to have to discuss.
Personally, as a parent of a child in high school, I would like to know what is being presented to our kids. On one hand, you say you're only there to listen and get feedback. Well, how are teenagers supposed to give you feedback when they don't know what there's going to be? So obviously,
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe Sherry should speak to this a little bit, because we've had a conversation about ideas of talking to principals and students and so forth. Are you comfortable with that or not?
I'll give you a brief overview at this point in time with the short time we've had to talk about it.
Yeah.
Anytime we engage students in a public forum, where we're asking their opinions, it's our professional judgment that it has to be meaningful and purposeful for them. This is also a bit of teaching them about the democratic process. So what you want is good for them to be meaningful for them. And as it's been alluded to, they need some background information, and they need some ability to have time to reflect the process. And for us, actually, we need to spend some time with them, helping them know, to give them the tools to help them know how to share that information, because they'll be quite cynical and careful, and they'll be wondering about what's going to happen with that information, and is that information going to make a difference. So I talked to 2 of the 3 secondary principals. We were going to get together and develop a template that we would use at all 3 schools, where we would work with the cross-representation of the student body and look at doing a whole lot of pre-work before the actual forum. I have yet to have a chance to engage with trustees about what they want that to look like, or how are they going to gather and capture for themselves the information from there. But you're correct that we need to do a lot of work around this for it to be meaningful to them. And the last thing I would suspect the trustees want is for kids to go through that process and believe that it didn't have an impact. Right? They're young, and this is the time we want them to begin to believe that they can make a difference. So we've got a lot of work to do, some energy from the secretary principals around that, some recommendations and some suggestions. We'll build a template that works for all 3 schools. And that's kind of where, in that very brief conversation, when you said, what do you think? That's what I'm thinking.
So we're letting our educational experts design this pretty much.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Short of, we're dealing with kids all the way from grade 8 to grade 12. And in order to do a whole bunch of pre-work with the kids ahead of time, we're going to be taking other things away from them. Is there not more important topics that they should be learning right now?
It would be on a voluntary basis. So if you did not want your child to participate in something like that, that certainly would be your right to say so.
If this is going to be a lot of pre-work, it's not going to take time out of the classrooms then?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right now, all secondary schools have all kinds of infrastructures in place to get feedback from students. They have student government, they have different groups that work in the school on different activities. And so our sense was exactly that. We have a very short time frame to do that. So we're looking at some of the existing structures and mechanisms in the school that might work, where they are used to providing feedback to the school. Like, as a student council or a group of leadership students, or that we can add some other students too. But hopefully we'll find some existing structures where they're used to that kind of activity, and add some students to that. Because you're correct, we have a very narrow window to make this work.
Tony?
I just want to say that a year and a half ago, the Lake Trail PAC asked Dr. Kinney to come and talk to our kids at Lake Trail. And we mentioned at that particular board meeting, would it be possible if we could send a newsletter home with our kids to notify parents that the superintendent's coming to the school to talk to the kids, give their feedback about what's happening at Lake Trail. There was a bit of a miscommunication problem there. There was a really angry Pat. And I think it's really important that if you want to talk to people's children under this circumstance, that you get the principal to send them a letter and say, hey, we're going to be here to talk to your kids about it. If you're interested, feel free to join us in the gym or wherever you're going to have it, so you can hear what your children have to say about what's happening around them. Because we don't give our kids enough credit, and I think that their parents deserve to sit there and hear what they have to say in that kind of environment.
Feedback? Okay. Anyone else? Lady at the back?
I'll try to use it as respectfully as possible. Through you, Madam Chair, can I please ask Janice how she's going to base her decision on October 27th?
I think that we have, we've dealt with that already, ma'am, this evening. We're not going to conduct a poll here of the board. We're going to make our decision on October the 27th. Trustees will use whatever criteria is important to them. The public have elected us to do just that. They have confidence that we will use our heads to move forward in a smart way, and I await with bated breath, as do you, what my colleagues will say on October 27th. So I've already answered that, ma'am. Does someone else have somebody else have a question? Shelley? Or, sorry, yeah, Shelley.
In Jordan's first draft that came to the report, there was costing models, breakdowns of cost estimates and stuff like that. Why was that not included?
I believe without exception, those things are included in there, and then we added some. They're within the body of the report. There are some things that we felt, as I said, this was a first draft without the opportunity to have a full conversation with senior staff and get our input, and we felt there was collectively some things that should be added to that. We hope that we've got quite a comprehensive list there. If there are some things you feel we've missed, please do tell us. Marilyn?
Just a final question, I'll try to brief. Both reports make reference to the fact that neither of the configuration options presented will solve the problems of a lake trail or the Cumberland zone. I'm wondering what the board intends to do to address those issues. If it's not for reconfiguration, or if configuration isn't the solution, then what are you going to do to solve those issues?
We hope to get some feedback from the public to help us with that. Really, we do. I'm not going to give you another kick at the cat just yet.
I'm just trying to let you know that Janice is respectfully trying to get your attention.
Yeah, I see her there. Janice?
I'd like to address the meeting that I'm going to miss in case any parents have any concerns about feedback. The meeting that I am missing, if you feel that there's something there that you would like to get to me and have input there, I can meet you after and get my phone number. My phone number's on the web and my email's in there. So if you have concerns about me not being at a meeting and making an informed decision, I'm more than welcome for your phone calls and your feedback. And I'm sure that Deb will have some really good notes for me to read when I get back. So rest assured that I will attend those. If I don't attend the meetings, I will connect with you. So please feel free to contact me regarding that meeting.
I think I probably need to very, very strongly state that we do not think that we were elected to reconfigure the district. We believe that we were elected to have a different process than the last board did, and that's what you're seeing before you right now, is a different process. So we really do eagerly await what the general public has to say, so we will know how to proceed. Corey?
I love hearing you say that, because there was certainly, I had a lot of frustration with the process, and as you know, I don't know if Mr. Weber knows, but I was involved in many outlets to do. I guess my question and my concern is that if it's about the process, if Mr. Weber makes comments like he did that are so inflammatory, that I fear people aren't going to want to be a part of the process. And so I'm just wondering if there's some other way that might be approached about, I mean, basically it's about, back to Ellie's question about how you're going to make decisions. My gut saying, oh wow, Mr. Weber, you know who I am, you know what I've done in this district and how much information I have, and was I one of those persons that was sitting on my hand? Are you disregarding my opinion or regarding it? And and then maybe I would know whether I want to participate in the process. And so, because I do believe strongly that the process of what we wanted to work on, that's fabulous. Fabulous. And so there's some other way around it, that could be worded or worked out, so that not everybody shuts down, and I think you might be able to achieve your goals.
And that's what we're trying to do, is so people don't shut down. That's why we structured it the way we did. Is there any other questions? Lady in the back? Oh, yeah, Lance, there you go.
If I have an opinion that I would like to discuss with one particular board member, if I feel more comfortable, regarding this report, would that person make that comment or opinion available to the rest of the board?
They could. What happens, I often get some emails from people, and they'll say, here's what I think, Susan, and I'll ask them, are you okay with me forwarding this to the rest of the board? And if they say no, well, it's just for me, and that's it. I don't tell anybody. But if they say, yes, please forward it, I do. That does happen quite often, actually. I get a lot of feedback, actually. People, I guess when you're the board chair, they feel that you're the person to send the feedback to, but I am very careful about that. If they don't want it passed on, I don't. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, and we really do look forward to seeing you at our meetings. Please do come out and tell us what you think. I have a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.